Have you wondered what it feels like to meditate in silence for 10 days? No phone, no talking to anybody, just you and your thoughts. Well, I did just that, and I'm going to talk all about it and my transformative journey since then. Hi everyone, I am Pramita. I am an artist who is constantly curious and learning about what makes us tick, and I'm here to share all of it with you. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience doing the Vipassana meditation. I've done about 2 sessions of these and they have been completely life-changing for me, and it has completely rewired the way I think, the way I feel, the way I process my reality. And I'm here to share all about my experience, but before I dive right in, I do want to talk a little bit about Vipassana itself. Vipassana means to see things as they really are, and it's one of the oldest meditation techniques discovered by Buddha. The whole basis of this teaching is all around impermanence and understanding that everything is constantly changing. So there is no need for us to latch on to certain negative outcomes that may have happened in our life. Now, in theory, we understand the whole concept of impermanence and that things are always changing, but it's hard to implement it when you don't experience it for yourself. Theory remains theory. And this is why this practice is so potent, because it's such a practical technique that gives you experience firsthand of what impermanence really is, and how our body is always changing, and how our thought is coming and going, and there's no point in giving each of those thoughts the energy that it doesn't deserve. I learned this technique by going to one of S.N. Goenka's retreat centers. He's not alive anymore, but the spirit of his course and the layout still stays so true to his teachings and the whole integrity of the Vipassana meditation itself. And it's such an honor to go into one of these 10-day silent meditation retreats. You learn so much about yourself. You learn so much about what's not working for you anymore. How these meditations or schedule is set up is you meditate about 10 hours per day, and it goes on for about 10 days. You have no access to your phones, to anybody. You can't talk to your fellow meditators. You can't read. You can't journal. You are left with observing and sitting with your thoughts. And I feel nowhere in the world do we have this kind of environment where we have the luxury of doing that and finding a reason to stay away from a phone. That's why I find these retreats so beautiful and such a catalyst for you to go really deep into your psyche and really going deep into your being, which you would not have a luxury of doing otherwise. I have done about 2 sessions. My first session was last year in Toronto, and my second session was this year in Delhi. And the gap that I had between both the sessions was about 9 months. It's one of those things where I keep finding myself coming back to purely because of how the whole course is laid out. The first few days, you're still getting a hang of the technique. You are getting habituated to sitting for so many hours per day in meditation. And of course, you don't have your phone, so your body is also kind of recalibrating itself from not getting that dopamine hit every hour or so that you get from your phone. So there's a lot of reset that happens the first few days, and it takes a little bit of time for you to integrate into your deeper meditation, because the first few days is always a little bit of surface level thoughts and annoyance, like, oh, my body's hurting, I don't want to do this anymore. But hang on, after a few days it always gets a little better because you get used to it, and your nervous system has calmed down a little bit for you to go deeper and deeper. My favorite part about this whole retreat is always his discourses. At the end of the night, there are his recordings of every day, day one, day two, and he talks about the experiences you may feel, the thoughts you may go through uh, on that day. And he's not alive anymore, but damn, the spirit of him is still alive, and there's so much wisdom with everything that comes out from his mouth. It's like he is something, he is something. And it's such an honor to get the privilege of sitting through and listening to him speak. I can't imagine what it would feel like if he was alive and there in front of us and giving those talks, but it still doesn't take away from the experience you feel from it. And like, oh, his talks are amazing. I swear, I can listen to him talk my whole life, my whole freaking life. The whole practice is all around not being too attached to any positive experiences that you may have, and not being averted by any negative experiences that you would have. There's a thing that he mentions, as Goenka talks about, is sankharas, that they are basically stored memories all over your body that you might have no idea that it's even stored there. And think of it as a knot. So the more you are pulling and tugging, the more energy you're putting in the knot, the tighter it'll get. Similarly, the more negative thoughts, or the more thoughts you're putting into a certain trauma, a certain thing that may have happened, what someone might have told you, whatever it is, the more inertia you put in, the tighter it gets, the harder it gets, and the more intense the thought process actually gets. And the calmness with which you use to untie those knots and understand that, okay, it needs to loop through this for it to untangle, it'll get entangled and there won't be a knot anymore. And that's basically what the whole practice is all about. You have any positive thoughts, it's great, have it, great, good, don't be attached to it because you don't want to create new knots. And if you have an aversion to a certain thought, that's okay. Acknowledge it, observe it, but don't give it any more additional thoughts so it gets more intensified. That's the whole base of the practice. And I actually don't want to go too deep into my experience because I don't want it to get in the way of anybody else's experience that could happen, because everyone perceives things and learns things a bit differently. But all I can say is this whole practice helped me not overthink as much as I usually do. And for an overthinker, coming to a conclusion that thinking about my problems got me nowhere was revolutionary, because I actually experienced it firsthand. How me not putting that inertia into my thoughts actually reduced the intensity of that thought. It blew my mind, absolutely blew my mind. And that's what makes me feel like this practical experience is so useful, and is something that is so worth trying, because you don't know what it is going to show up for you. You have no idea. The experience I had in both of my sessions have been very different. The first session, the first time ever I tried Vipassana last year in Toronto, was me walking in with a very different mindset. I walked in as like a baby, have no idea what this whole thing is about, have no idea what the schedule is going to be about, because I didn't want to look in too deep into all of that. I wanted to just go in and experience for what it is, because I had heard a lot of good stuff from my sister doing it and my brother-in-law doing it as well. So I went with their recommendation, experienced it, went in with a clean slate, learning everything like a baby would, taking first steps. And by the end of it, the experiences I had was beautifully intense, and it's something that I will really remember for life, and understanding that that is a level of depth I have access to. Now, moving forward, 9 months later, I signed up for my session in Delhi, second session, as coming in as an old student. Now, the difference between my first and the second session is my second session, I walked in like a teenager, thinking, oh, I got this. I know what it's all about. I can sit for 10 hours. I've done this before, but This technique humbles you like no other, because you go in thinking you've got this, but you really don't. You don't got this at all. And what I really mean by that is the whole basis of this practice is all around not being attached to your experiences, the good ones. And I found myself being subconsciously attached to my experiences that I had in the first one. And I tried, in a sense, to recreate that. I know how I had reached the states I had reached the first session. So the second time I was trying to recreate that, but I realized that that was taking me in the opposite direction completely. And thanks to his discourses, it was such a big reminder of that, of energy is constantly always changing. I can't keep replicating what had happened in the past in my present to experience what I had experienced in the past. That was such a big moment for me, because I was like, okay, whoa. And that's when the teaching actually kicked in full swing. That's when I understood the depth of our innate nature of being so attached and averted to things, good and bad experiences, that creates more sankharas, more knots in our body for sometimes no reason. Because few years down the line, whatever negative or good happened, you might not remember. Your brain will completely change the whole scenario of it. And yeah, it was such a beautiful moment for me to experience that. The second time around was so grounding. I felt so grounded in the teaching. I absorbed so much more of the teaching. The sessions taught me what I needed to see in that moment. And that's the beauty of this technique, of this whole retreat itself, that you never know what it's going to hit you with. You might be going in for the 10th time, 12th time, 100th time. But there's always going to be something new that you will experience that you had never access to before. Through all of these experiences, there are 3 major lessons or things that I learned about myself that has changed from how I operated before. Because it does take some time for you to integrate a little bit once you're out of the retreat and implement those changes in your day-to-day life, because that's when the actual magic begins. The very first thing I realized that has changed internally is how I navigate my life right now. I am not able to think past a certain outcome, meaning if I have a project that I want to release, I'm not able to think anything worst case beyond that, other than just the step of me releasing or me fixing or me doing something that is in my control. I'm not thinking so much about the consequences, but I'm just thinking, okay, this is what I can deliver, this is what I'll deliver, and we'll see. Whatever happens after, we'll see. We deal with it as it comes, rather than thinking about the worst case scenarios beforehand and then thinking, oh my God, this is not going to work at all. But have I even tried it? Have I even released it? How do I know it's not going to work? So in my mind, I've kind of become that person where I'm not able to think too far ahead. And that has been such a blessing for me in so many ways. And that is what's helping me be so sane in my path right now, because this path is all about unknowns. I don't know, I have no idea how things are going to turn out, but I'm not stressing on how things are not going to work out. I'm just more focused on creating and putting things out there and see how it all unfolds. So yeah, that's one of the biggest changes that I noticed in myself. The second is I have been able to embody a very deeper sense of presence. And that to me is so beautiful. Like really experiencing the impermanence and the temporariness of everything around really teaches you to develop such a deep level of sense of presence. The energy that you're in right now, the people you're surrounding yourself with in that moment, it's never going to replicate. It's never going to be reoccurring. It's never going to be the same the next time, because energy is meant to be transformed from one form to the other. And yeah, experiencing all of that in the retreat, I feel like the whole notion of me being or showing up with full presence has been so prominent. There are 100% times where I'm like completely going off my track, and I mean, not everything is all butterflies and rainbows, but the awareness is there when I see myself walking away mentally. I am aware enough to bring it back and be like, nope, this is the present, focus on this. This is the real that you can experience right now. And this actually brings me to the third thing that I learned, or third thing that I embody so deeply, is a deep sense of gratitude. Again, ties in with my second point, understanding that everything is so temporary, everything changes so fast, that I'm so grateful for everything that comes, good or bad. So grateful for everything that life throws at me. Everything has a lesson, everything has an experience, everything has a deeper sense of embodiment, and I'm living for it. I really am. With that, I will end the video right here. Thank you so much for sticking around. Like and subscribe if you have gone to a Vipassana retreat center before or have that experience before. Please do share experiences. I would love to know in the comments below. And thank you, and subscribe for more.